Hello everyone, this is Ed Talks Film. My name is Ed, we're here to talk film. And today we are going to be doing something a little different that I haven't done before ever on this channel. And that is we're going to be doing a tier list for Steven Spielberg movies. As you can see, there's 10 I didn't see, which is kind of embarrassing because some of those movies are actually big movies for Spielberg, like Amistad and Empire of the Sun and AI, which I feel like I should have seen because I am a Kubrick devotee. But I wanted to do something a little different for the channel, have a little bit of fun doing something like this while I'm working on some other videos for you guys. And yeah, so let's get right into it. So first up we have Jaws. Jaws is a movie that is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's in like my top 3 favorite movies of all time. I've like Jaws has been in my life about as long as I can remember. Honestly, I saw Jaws as way too young of an age, but it gave me like such a thirst for adventure, and it was a New England movie, which I couldn't really put together until I was older because it just wasn't something that I was thinking about. It led to my love of sharks. I've had a supreme love of sharks and dinosaurs for like my entire life. So Jaws is no doubt responsible for that, as well as another movie on this list. I'm very... This is literally one of my favorite movies of all time, so I think it's pretty easy. It's going up in the S tier. Phenomenal movie. If you haven't seen Jaws, I don't know what you're doing with your life. You should have been seeing that movie. Yeah, Jaws is awesome. Jaws is, do I do a video on Jaws? No, not right now. Next, we have Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, I like aliens. I'm a big aliens dude. Aliens are sick. I saw this movie actually in theaters for the, not 30th anniversary, but I think the 40th anniversary. Would it have been the 40th anniversary in 2017? I believe so. And I was captivated by it. I thought it was a dope movie. I actually have that Blu-ray that has like the theatrical version, the director's cut, and the special edition. I need to get it on 4K. That should be a movie that I get on 4K. I actually like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but it's not my favorite Steven Spielberg movie. It's not my most rewatchable Steven Spielberg movie. It's also not one of my favorites Richard Dreyfuss performances, although he is very good in the film. But it's a movie I think I should see again because I haven't seen it in a little bit, and I think I'd probably love it if I watched it again. But I think for right now, and I know everybody's going to lose their mind when I do this, I'm just going to put this in B tier right now. Because it is a dope movie, but I don't have like that big, it didn't have that big of an impact on me, and that's maybe because it just came very late in my Spielberg watching, because I didn't really see it till I was like already an adult, basically. Next, we have Raiders of the Lost Ark. I love the Indiana Jones movies. Like, I love all of them. Raiders of the Lost Ark, God, I feel like that was my least watched Indiana Jones movie when I was a kid. I was always into Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Last Crusade. Those were like my Indiana Jones movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark never really was one for me, but I did watch it not too long ago, like a couple years ago, and I remember being absolutely blown away by this movie. Also, my girlfriend has never seen any of the Indiana Jones movie except for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I'm really gonna have to change that because I don't even know how that's possible. This is an A-tier movie, dude. A-tier movie. Raiders of the Lost Ark. Steven Spielberg took the B movie adventure film and elevated it to a place of entertainment that nobody had ever seen before, and had directing and writing in that film that I think nobody had really been expecting for that type of film. And Harrison Ford's performance as Indy obviously is phenomenal. He's iconic in that role. Arguably, I see Harrison Ford more as Indiana Jones than I see him as Han Solo, which is weird because Star Wars is obviously the bigger film. but I usually think Indiana Jones. Like, and it was like that for my childhood too. I loved Harrison Ford's Indiana Jones. I loved Indiana Jones. I actually used to have like an Indiana Jones like toy whip that would make sounds and stuff like that. That would run around the house. I was a nerd. But I also like that one of the things I really liked about the Indiana Jones movies is that it kind of weaved in history and religion and all these mythical things that, you know, traditionally people groups have believed in, but obviously scientifically we're not necessarily sure about, or we know that they don't do anything. And it's interesting seeing a movie that will that leaned into that, right? The idea of what if the legends are true, and it'd actually be good. E.T. S-tier movie. E.T. is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a movie that I have tons of fond memories watching. Probably another reason why I'm so interested in aliens. I love the story of this family who is in a broken home, and the idea that all these kids are kind of dealing with it in their own way. Although Gertie doesn't necessarily fully understand what's going on, but Elliot and his brother do, like, are kind of, you know, a lot of their behavior is probably directly linked to the fact that, you know, there was a divorce, they don't have a father in the house anymore. And it's once the adventure starts, it really doesn't stop. And there's just some standout sequences in this movie, like when they are making that, like when all the scientists come to the house, dude, that shot of them walking up the street with the sun setting in the background. That's another thing. Back in the day, dude, Steven Spielberg and the shots of the sun setting, those golden hour shots he had. I mean, the whole sequence with the trick-or-treating on Halloween, so beautiful, dude. It really blew my mind how amazing and beautiful he was able to, like, craft light in his films. And it actually really blows my mind that we don't actually see that a lot these days anymore. It actually makes me sad because I feel like some of these lighting styles that we saw in a lot of older movies, there's a lean to naturalism, right? To more naturalistic look in movies and in cinematography today. And, you know, creating a clean image, creating an image that's more representative of, like, actual reality. And I think maybe it just benefits from Steven Spielberg's color grading at the time and the use of celluloid. I feel like he was able to find a balance between that in his career in the 70s through the 90s. And, you know, E.T. is just such a beautiful film, and every time I watch it, I love it, and the ending is one of the most powerful endings I think I've ever witnessed in a film. Temple of Doom. Temple of Doom is now I'm going to say it's a B-tier movie for me. It's a B-tier movie only because as time has gone on, Temple of Doom has become my more least watched film as time has gone on. Even though I really like it. I love Short Round, dude. I love the whole beginning sequence. Where are they in the beginning? Is that like... I don't know where they are in the beginning of the movie. But I freaking fell in love with that. With the dance number and the singing and the freaking... how that all freaking turns into crap. I always... the Kalima. I thought that was sick when I was a kid. I was like, this movie's insane. They're freaking dipping people in fire. That heart's on fire. They pulled that heart out of that dude's chest. It was a crazy movie. It's a crazy movie. It almost feels like it shouldn't exist, considering the rest of the Indiana Jones movies. But, yeah, man, I think I'm just going to put that B tier for right now. I really like the movie, though. The Color Purple. Gosh, where am I going to put The Color Purple? I'm sorry, I really don't like The Color Purple that much. And it's not even like it's a bad movie. It's a good movie. And it was Steven Spielberg, like, kind of doing, like, the I'm an artist thing. And taking himself more seriously, which I think is good. And I think the movie's good. And it's got some great performances, like the performances from Oprah's performances is incredible in that film. I just not a movie I really, really enjoy that much. It's not a movie that I'm rushing to watch, and it's a period piece in a period and a setting that I'm not necessarily interested in, and I'm not sure that Spielberg necessarily gets me to be fully interested in that period in time. But who knows? Maybe I'll watch it again sometime soon, and I'll change my mind. Always, this is a... I'm just going to put this as a D tier movie. When I watched Always, I didn't hate the movie. I didn't even think it was bad necessarily. I just think it's just kind of... It's a movie that feels too conventional, too normal, too non-spectacular to be a film by Steven Spielberg. And ultimately, it just really doesn't do that much for me. Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade is an A-tier movie. Love Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. Maybe my favorite Indiana Jones movie. I really want to watch them all again very soon. Maybe I'll do a video on that. Showing my girlfriend all the Indiana Jones movies. Yeah, dude, this was probably my favorite one all throughout high school. I think might be the best, maybe the best one. I don't know, Raiders is pretty good, though. And the Nazi heads exploding at the end of Raiders is pretty awesome. Yeah, dude, but I love Sean Connery in the film as Indy's dad. That was always something that really, really struck me as a really good move in that film. A lot of comedic moments come from that. I love the return to the Nazis being the bad guys. I thought that was really awesome. There's some great jokes and gags in the film that I really, really like. Oh my god, when he beats up that Nazi and throws him out of the blimp, and then he turns around and everybody looks at him and he goes, "No ticket!" That kills me every single time. Yeah, and I feel like for a lot of people, it was probably a return to form for Indiana Jones series. Especially after Temple of Doom, I don't think was really widely well received, even though I think it's a very, very good film. But yeah, no, I think that's a dope movie, and I love the whole lore behind the Knights Templar and the Crusades, and bringing that in and weaving back in the sort of like mythology of the Middle Ages and Christianity and stuff like that into it. That's really cool to me. Jurassic Park, A-tier movie. A-tier movie. Hold on to your butts. Clever girl, dude. Jurassic Park is a sick movie. And it's kind of weird putting that above Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like while I'm looking at this list. Who knows? Maybe I'll change it. But I've always loved I've always had a deep love for Jurassic Park. It's one of the movies that made me fall in love with dinosaurs. Makes you think about dinosaurs as animals and not just as monsters. That's something I super duper appreciate about this film. And that's something I appreciate a lot about this Jurassic Park films in general, is the idea that these are animals, which it hurts me, pains me dearly when I'm watching the movies, and I'm just like, I'm sad because these animals are getting hurt. So this is Sam Neill as Dr. Alan Grant. I'll forever have a crush on Laura Dern in this movie. Samuel Jackson's little party school. Dotson, it's Dotson, everybody. See, nobody cares. There's so much just iconic stuff in this film. And all the dinosaur special effects, I mean, it's weird, because when you're watching it now, it does look a teeny bit dated, but it still holds up pretty well, I would say. I feel like, I'm sorry that my chair is so squeaky. I feel like it really still holds up a lot better than a lot of other movies from that time period that had heavy uses of special effects. And I think a lot of that has to do with the animatronics. But it's an exciting movie. It's a movie that really doesn't get boring. And even though there's not that much dinosaur action in this movie, when there is, it's absolutely thrilling. I mean, the raptors chasing the kids, the T-Rex fight versus the raptors, even just the introduction of the T-Rex in general is really awesome. That whole nighttime sequence in the rain where the T-Rex escapes. The whole subplot about stealing the genetics to sell. That's very fascinating. That's something that I really, really thought was cool, especially on the rewatch, because I watched this movie not too long ago, and I was like, wow, that's actually very... I never even remembered that from when I was a child. So, Jurassic Park. Phenomenal film. All right, we have Schindler's List. Schindler's List is, I know, a big movie for a lot of people. It was a big movie for me, especially when it came to films about genocide and the Holocaust. Schindler's List is a movie that has a very significant place in history, especially with its portrayal of the Holocaust and Holocaust awareness in general, and of specifically in detailing the horrors of it in a cinematic format. It has obviously amazing lead performances by Ben Kingsley and Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes. It's a horrific movie. It's a movie that is a very serious Spielberg movie, but also obviously still has some of Spielberg's own traits in it. Some of the lightheartedness of the film. Ultimately, though, and this may be a product of the time and how I feel, or it is a product of the time and how I feel. I feel like Schindler's List, while horrific, does, I think, a little bit too much to lift up the audience by the end. And while it is a horrific movie with very horrific things, it really does a good job to not leave you on a sour note, which I'm not sure I really like too much how that movie makes me feel by the end. I also don't know how much I like the idea of Oskar Schindler being the main character. Not because he's not well written or he's not a good character. I feel like it ultimately takes away from the core of the movie, which is what's happening to these, to the Jews. And this is a great movie, but Oskar Schindler is not one of my favorite characters in this film at all. I actually think Ralph Fiennes is actually maybe the best character in the whole movie, not from a moral standpoint, obviously, but from a character development standpoint and you know, his scenes in the movie. He's a scene stealer in this movie. And the I could have bought more speech, that never really emotionally impacted me in a way that I know it emotionally impacted a lot of people. It is a great tribute to the Holocaust. It's a great tribute to the Jews that lost their lives, and it's a great tribute and film about remembrance and the reason why we shouldn't forget about the sins of the past and Holocaust and different genocides, because we're doomed to repeat them again eventually at some point if we do. But ultimately, I'm going to put this movie in A tier, not S tier, for the reason that I think the movie... I feel like I've seen Holocaust movies like Roman Polanski's The Pianist, which is ultimately darker and more emotionally resonant with me than Schindler's List is. So, The Lost World: Jurassic Park. This is a C tier movie. It's fun. Jeff Goldblum, dude, great in the movie. Oh shoot, I forgot the lady who plays it. Julianne Moore, great in the movie. Vince Vaughn, great in the movie. Amazing set pieces in the movie, like when that trailer is going over the edge of that cliff. The hunting of the dinosaurs, like towards the beginning of the movie, that was really interesting. The capturing them and stuff like that. There's a lot of great moments of Spielberg really nailing being Spielberg, right? All the great directing, blocking, editing, really makes this movie an exciting film. The T-Rex at the gas station, the raptors chasing everybody through the tall grass. That's one of the most exciting sequences I think I've ever seen in a movie. But ultimately, the story in this movie, I think, is a little underwritten, is very underwritten. I feel like things just sort of happen. I feel like this movie, unlike the first Jurassic Park, is more of a film about just showing the dinosaurs doing dinosaur stuff than it is about the characters in the film. And ultimately, it was kind of more boring than the first Jurassic Park, weirdly enough, because of that. Great poster, though. Amazing poster. I love that. But yeah. Next, we have Saving Private Ryan. S-tier movie. It's one of my favorite war movies of all time. I've seen this movie so many times, dude. So many times throughout my entire childhood. I watched Saving Private Ryan a bajillion times. It's an awesome movie. It's got, I mean, I'm gonna skip over gushing about the Omaha Beach sequence because everybody does that, but it is a phenomenal scene. But I think even more than the Omaha Beach sequence, the final battle of that film is absolutely incredible. I love seeing the relationship between Captain Miller and the rest of his troops develop over time. This movie does sort of suffer from Spielberg trying to lighten it up a bit, but I feel like the end of the movie actually does a better job than Schindler's List at leaving you on a darker note and really understanding the sacrifice that was made by these men in order to stop what was going on in Schindler's List than Schindler's List actually does. I mean, the "tell me I'm a good man, tell me I've earned this." I mean, that's such a heartbreaking scene when he asks his wife that, because you realize in that moment that Private Ryan has gone his entire life, really wondering whether or not he even earned the right to live. He's got like the survivor's guilt, and that's something that I think is very, very, that's a dark thing, and that's a thing that when you talk to, if you've spoken to veterans, and you've heard interviews, I know there's a lot of, why me? Why did I get out of this? And the rest of them didn't. And I feel like Saving Private Ryan does a great job at illustrating that. It's also a movie that does a great job, I think, at expressing how the perseverance of life as something that's valuable is important overall in this world, and is something that is worth sacrificing for. And while sending 8 guys to go get 1 guy in the middle of the war because all of his brothers died may seem like something that's not strategically sound, which on a technical level it's not. On an emotionally resonant level, it is something that I think is very emotionally resonant. And in terms of the movie, that really is just the story, is that, are you really going to allow this? Are you going to allow someone's mother to lose all of her sons in war? When basically all but one has already given their life. And dude, I mean, all the cameos in this movie are great. You know what I mean? I mean, Paul Giamatti's sequences in the movie are great. Ted Danson. It's bloody. It's gory. It's one of my favorite collaborations between Steven Spielberg and Janusz Kaminski, who I think absolutely kill it with the cinematography in this movie. The editing is absolutely spectacular. It's good at disorienting you at the beginning, and then it's good at grounding you all the way through the end, and then balancing different perspectives, especially in the final battle. And when characters die in this movie, you really feel it. It's really tough. It's really tough sometimes when they die. Wade dying, the sniper guy whose name I'm totally just blanking on right now, who's played by Barry Pepper. When he dies, that's such a crazy scene. And I think the movie also does a really good job at showing when those deaths happen. I mean, when Wade dies, like, it's a very particular circumstance, but when the sniper dies, there's kind of like that, we still have to move on, there's a war to fight, and he doesn't necessarily allow you to fully take in the fact that we just lost that character. And sometimes when a character dies, like when Vin Diesel dies towards the beginning of the movie, there's this anger that comes with it, and that there's not really a mourning period because there is a war to fight. We do have to move on. And I think that's something that gets illustrated very, very well in that film. Minority Report. I'm going to put this as a B-tier movie. It's one of my favorite sci-fi movies. It's one of my favorite sci-fi movies, probably from Steven Spielberg. Tom Cruise. I'm a big fan of Tom Cruise. I think he's great in the movie. I love the allusions to the security state. I love its whole commentary on that. I think it's got a very, very thrilling set of action sequences too, that really, really blow my mind, and I find really, really fun. Does it do it for me? Do I want to rewatch it as much as some of the other movies on this list? No. But ultimately, I think it's a really, really good time. And it's a movie I actually probably should watch again very soon, because my memory of it is kind of fading out a little bit. Catch Me If You Can. I've seen this movie a bunch of times. A-tier movie. Great performance by Tom Hanks. Great performance by Leonardo DiCaprio. It's thrilling. It's funny. Leonardo DiCaprio really owns this movie. It's one of his best performances, I would say. Especially, at this point in his career. Because it really is probably, I'd say, before some of his really, really great performances. But no, he really is able to nail the charisma. Tom Hanks really showing himself to be a really strong Steven Spielberg collaborator by this point in time. And I think he really nails his character as that FBI agent. There's a lot of Amy Adams in the movie. Oh my gosh, she's phenomenal when she gets into the movie. This movie also has really this is one of those movies where like the cinematography by Janusz Kaminski and Steven Spielberg, their style really starts to show a little bit more as well. Especially with the lighting in the film. There's a lot of like bright lighting in the film. Which we'll get to one of these movies in a second that I think may or may not have a little bit of an issue with that, but no, I mean, this is a fun movie. Anybody who's ever watched Catch Me If You Can knows this is a really, really fun movie, and it's a great period, modern period though, piece about somebody who kind of made it to the top based on pure ambition, and that in and of itself I think is inspiring. So, War of the Worlds. So War of the Worlds is going to go in the B tier, but it's one of my favorite Steven Spielberg movies. I can admit that sometimes it's a little cheesy, that sometimes things happen that you're like, I don't know how much sense that made, but Tom Cruise, Dakota Fanning, and that other dude whose name I can't remember who plays Robbie, I really, really dig their family dynamic. I love Tom Cruise's performance in this movie. He's playing a dad. I've always loved him in this movie, actually. I feel like he's somebody who's obviously put in a rough spot because he's a divorced father, taking care of these kids, and then through this extraneous circumstance. The interactions that he has with characters sometimes are very, very funny. But it is very tragic most of the time. This movie does really a good job at quantifying, essentially, how it felt when 9/11 happened for Americans, which I think is really, really a bold move to do with a film like this. And I've seen the 1954 War of the Worlds, which I also think is a freaking awesome movie. And I think this movie just ultimately resonated with me a lot more, maybe because it's newer, but also just because I feel like I could, being born in 1998, and then going through time a little bit, as time has gone on, I've really been able to like feel more and more of that sort of like the trauma of 9/11 in general society. And I feel like this movie does a really good job of quantifying it. There's also some incredible sequences in the film, like when the tripod first comes out of the ground, everything with the ferry boat sequence, the military fighting the aliens at that one point, that whole sequence in the basement, where the alien is searching for Tom Cruise and Dakota Fanning, and oh shoot, I can't remember what that guy's name is, but we all know who I'm talking about. Freaking Andy Dufresne. It's really, really dope. And I like the ending, and I like Morgan Freeman's narration. I love the design of the aliens. That was something I couldn't get enough of when I was a kid. I really, really just wanted to see pictures and videos of the aliens in that movie, because I've always been fascinated with aliens. So, yeah. Munich, S tier movie. I've seen this movie many times. It's a spy movie. It's about Operation Wrath of God, which is where Israel basically sent hit squads to go take out Palestinian leaders in order to get revenge for the Black September attacks on the Munich Olympics in 1972, I believe, which killed Israeli athletes. And it was really horrific. And this movie just rocks from beginning to end. Rocks. The whole Munich Olympic sequence is horrifying and tragic and violent in a way that is absolutely shocking. Probably shocking in a way that we really haven't seen since Saving Private Ryan up until this moment. And arguably more shocking than some sequences in Schindler's List. The idea of this kind of mishmash group of dudes who aren't necessarily super spies but have to do super spy stuff is also very fascinating, and it lends to a lot of the best moments of tension in the film when they have to do these hits, and they're kind of confronted with the fact that this spycraft work isn't necessarily something that they were fully prepared for. Eric Bana and Daniel Craig and Ciarán Hinds, absolutely amazing in the film. I love kind of the charisma of Daniel Craig. I love the sternness that Ciarán Hinds brings to the film. Eric Bana's the idea of him doing this and fighting for his family, I think is great. I love the period. I'm a big fan of movies that either were made in the 70s or are about the 70s. So that's something that is instantly stuck with me. It's a history movie about a piece of history that I think is beyond fascinating and also says a lot about today. And I think one of the great things about this movie is the message that it sort of presents about American foreign policy and how we want to be careful not to run into sort of some of the same pitfalls that the Israelis did in that film. Because ultimately the consequences that we are going to find ourselves running into maybe more than we can handle. And I think that's a bit of a commentary in there. And I think that's really, really, what would you say? Compounded by the final moment in the film, the final talk between Eric Bana's character and that other guy who, when they talk, you really realize, and then the Twin Towers are in the background, and did we do this to change the Black September leadership, or did we do this to change the Palestinian leadership? You did this for your country. And then you're just like, dude, what? He didn't even answer the question. You know what I mean? I love Munich so much. There's just so much. Every time I watch that movie, I'm just sucked in beginning to end. Maybe my second favorite Spielberg movie ever. All right, we have The Adventures of Tintin, C-tier movie. Kid Indiana Jones has really, really fun sequences in it. A movie that I could probably watch again and have no problem with. I'm just not necessarily into the animated film. I'm also just not necessarily super invested in Tintin. I've only ever seen this movie once. It's a movie that I'll probably watch again at some point, but it's not a movie I'm necessarily rushing to see. War Horse. Okay, so I have to go on my memory of War Horse. But I have recently checked out some sequences of the film because I did just get it on Blu-ray. The movie looks pretty sick. It's a World War I movie. It's a horse movie. It's not necessarily... It looks really cool, though. I love some of the battle sequences in War Horse. I've actually rewatched some of those quite a bit. Very, very cool. I feel like, if I remember correctly, I feel like the movie maybe went on a little bit too long when I was watching it. But it is a touching story about a dude and his horse, and I don't necessarily think that's bad. I actually really, really like movies about animals sometimes, and they can be very touching, and I think this is an example of a pretty decent one. I actually didn't even realize it was based on a play until recently. It takes place in World War I, which is a period of history that I also find very fascinating, so that gives it extra points. But I think I'm going to put it C tier for right now. I kind of feel like when I watch it again, it'll probably go here, or maybe even A tier, but I'm going to put it C tier for right now because I feel like the most it's ever going to move up is A tier. Lincoln, A tier Spielberg movie. Recently rewatched Lincoln. Let's just say that Lincoln is probably one of my favorite presidents, but I feel like this movie does a very good job at making the politics of it all thrilling while, it doesn't necessarily have to show a bunch about the Civil War. I mean, there's like basically one Civil War battle scene at the beginning of the film. So, being able to make something like the bureaucracy of changing a law very compelling is something that I think is very hard to do because of obvious reasons. I mean, it's a bunch of people debating in government, but Steven Spielberg really nails basically making that the most thrilling part. I mean, Tommy Lee Jones is phenomenal in the film. Obviously, Daniel Day-Lewis is great as Abraham Lincoln. He really, really does a great job just nailing what you would imagine the person of Lincoln is, which I think illustrates that he did a good job. Because I don't know what Lincoln sounded like. I don't know what Lincoln, how he acted or whatever, but I feel like this fits the bill for a well-rounded version of how I feel Lincoln would be. Sally Field as Mary Todd, I think, is also something that's very interesting. Her relationship with Lincoln and the trauma of losing children on her and her relationship and that strain with Lincoln, I think it's really well rounds that character, especially with the whole conflict of their son, played by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, wanting to go to war. Dude, I mean, it's shot very well. It's one of those period pieces that, when you watch it in the theater and you come out, you feel like you've come up with a new understanding, not only about this country, but about the lengths to which had to be gone in order to get us to where we are now, and further progress, which I think is great. Bridge of Spies, A-tier movie. I love Bridge of Spies, dude. I also recently rewatched this. Tom Hanks as this lawyer dude, and then why am I forgetting everybody's names, dude? Hold on, what's that guy's name? Mark Rylance as that Soviet spy dude. What's his name? Rudolph Abel. He was okay. Their interactions are beyond funny sometimes. Would it help? Those are always really funny. Great cinematography in this movie. Really, really love the cinematography in this movie. I love a lot of the set pieces in this movie as well. I like bringing in I like how Steven Spielberg kind of deals with the Cold War in this film and the idea of a peaceful resolution on a small scale. You know what I mean? With this movie. The whole U-2 spy plane stuff, that really sent me because I'm a big fan of movies like First Man and The Right Stuff. So any movie that's really about the furthering of military aviation really, really gets me going when I'm watching a film because I'm super fascinated in the advancement of technology when seeing a movie get made. Or in watching a movie, rather. That's always been something that's very fascinating. The Cold War is also a period in history that I am very, very interested in. I'm actually listening to a book right now, David Talbot's The Devil's Chessboard. Really, really awesome book about the history of the CIA, and there's a lot of very interesting factoids and side pieces about the Cold War and how they operated during the Cold War. I think it's pretty cool. So, dude, and Tom Hanks. I'm not the hugest fan of Tom Hanks as an actor, but sometimes he does roles like this movie where he really gets me. Where he really, really gets me. I get the sniffles for some reason. It's probably because my allergies. It's springtime. Next. Okay, let me do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. And everyone's going to be like, you're really ranking Indiana Jones 4 with Jurassic Park 2 The Color Purple and Tintin. Dude, I have a fun time when I watch Indiana Jones 4. I don't think it's all great. I think him not dying in the nuclear bomb blast from the freaking being in the lead-lined refrigerator, totally, that's stupid. I never liked that. But I don't know, dude. I just have such a fun time watching that movie. I don't want to have to explain myself. The Post. The Post is a C-tier movie? What? I never really liked The Post all that much, even when I saw it in the theater. Dude, I feel like it's a Spielberg movie I feel like it really tries to recapture like the amazingness of a movie like All the President's Men, but I don't think it really succeeds at doing that. I do kind of understand the urgency in the film. I just really don't vibe with a lot of it, though. The whole Kay Graham story, I think, is very interesting. I think the idea of getting these papers and publishing these papers is also very interesting. And I love news movies. I really, really do like news movies. But I really feel like this movie, Spielberg fast-tracked this movie to get made because he felt it was very pertinent for the times because of everything that was going on with Donald Trump and his spats with the press. And that was something that Spielberg felt like it was important to get this movie off the ground. I feel like maybe a couple more drafts of that script would have been needed. It's got cool cinematography. I like walking around the news offices. But it really kind of feels like a movie where you're like, okay, here's the big expositional dialogue scene where I say tons of stuff and I look heroic, and here's this scene where I say tons of stuff and I look heroic, and oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this now. It's a movie that I feel like suffers from conventional storytelling to a point that Spielberg's style, which does make the movie a lot more watchable, can't necessarily save it fully for me. Ready Player One. I didn't like it. I straight up didn't like it. Straight up did not like Ready Player One. Really that much at all. I saw it in IMAX and I thought maybe it was a little bit cool that we were going to get a movie and it was going to touch on all these properties and stuff like that, but I really wasn't the biggest fan of it. I feel like, I don't know, it just wasn't interesting to me. It didn't stick with me. I'm not a big fan of Taylor Sheridan. I think that's his name. Tyler Sheridan. They really couldn't hold that movie down for me. So anyway, this is my Steven Spielberg tier list. I know that I've started a riot probably with people who are really diehard Spielberg fans because I probably put some of their favorites very low. But this is how I feel with Steven Spielberg's movies. Please let me know how you might rank Steven Spielberg movies, whether you agree with my list or disagree with my list. I'd be very, very fascinated in hearing that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.